Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to part 4 of Bash at the Beach, the final part with our two co-main events for the GAW Women's World Championship and the GAW World Championship. But before we get started, we need to show you security cam footage that was just sent to us from seemingly just a couple of minutes ago involving Samoa Joe, and what we see here, Drew McIntyre, Buddy Murphy, and Ricky Steamboat. All of them seem to be attacking Samoa Joe in the back. And again, this was no more than about half an hour ago, and it seems to be just after Samoa Joe gave his interview before his World Championship match. So we'll keep an eye on what happens here with the World Champion. There doesn't seem to be any indication that he will pull out of his steel cage match with Jay White in the main event tonight. So thanks for joining us. Let's get on with the GAW Women's World Championship match. Well, it is time for our co-main event of the evening, and I don't know if you will be able to find a rivalry more heated with more tension than this one for the GAW Women's World Championship. Charlotte Flair is the first to enter the steel cage, and a little bit of an ocean-themed robe there for the Queen. I like it, but her attire certainly will not help her against one of the most dangerous competitors in the history of GAW, as she has to face off with the current Women's World Champion, Asuka. And speaking of the champ, ask and you shall receive. Asuka has been enjoying one of the most dominant runs of any champion in the history of GAW, the second longest reigning Women's World Champion of all time, the third longest reigning champion of any belt in GAW that we have ever seen. And she looks to continue that dream run here against the Queen, Charlotte Flair, still looking for her first taste of gold in GAW after coming here just under a year ago. Asuka and Charlotte Flair for the title in a steel cage submission match.
Introducing the challenger from the Queen City, Charlotte Flair. Introducing the champion from Osaka, Japan. She is the Women's World Champion, Asuka.
No pinfalls, no escapes, no disqualifications. Submission only in this steel cage match. And when you talk about submissions, you talk about the figure eight and you talk about the Asuka lock. Two of the most dangerous submissions ever in the history of the GAW women's division. And we know that about Charlotte Flair even after spending under a year here in general admission wrestling. And now Flair just tossing Asuka into the side of the cage. Absolutely brutal. Flair certainly has the size and power advantage here. But Asuka, well, she's never lost a title defense. So she has that on her side. We'll see if Flair tries to soften up the legs a little bit in preparation for a figure eight. And it looks like that might be what she's doing, and now she's turned it into a deep Boston Crab. No match for the champ, Asuka, though. This is the only way for these two women to settle what has been a molten hot rivalry Asuka now into a dragon sleeper. I think when it comes to variety of submissions, I think Asuka's got the queen beat. We've seen her certainly use a variety across her career, across her GAW championship run. And now with a beautiful teardrop suplex, certainly softening up the neck of Charlotte Flair for the Asuka lock. And in equal measure going for the legs. Again, Flair needs the legs. She needs that power in her legs to really sit back on the figure eight and really turn it into something. No comment. Asuka with the backbreaker. And, you know, the figure eight, I mean, as much as it does hurt the legs, of course, but it puts an awful lot of strain on your back when you're locked in it. So Charlotte Flair softening up Asuka's back may not be the worst idea. And now Flair locked in a dragon sleeper again. Asuka has actually put away competitors with this submission, but it will not happen for Charlotte Flair. I think the Asuka lock will be needed for the GAW Women's Champion. And now Charlotte channeling her father, Ric Flair. He's certainly made a name for himself inside the steel cage. Had many of his greatest bouts inside this very cage. And Charlotte Flair with the spear. And that just hurts everywhere, doesn't it? Doesn't matter what kind of submission you use, the spear is going to hurt. And now, Flair. I thought maybe she was looking for a figure eight. Instead, she will opt to inflict some more damage on the legs. And you will certainly need that against Asuka. The way that, how tough she is and what we've seen her do. And now Charlotte Flair, after softening up the legs, will go for a figure eight. And that is cinched in, but almost immediately Asuka is able to get out of it. I mean, that just shows you the toughness of the champ. Charlotte Flair does all this work to lock in the figure eight, and almost immediately Asuka fights her way out of it. Gonna have to do a little bit more than that. Single leg crab now from Charlotte on the champ. I haven't seen her bust this one out very much, and Asuka able to get out of that one pretty easily as well. Well, Charlotte Flair has controlled a lot of the tempo of this match, but this is somewhat typical for what we see from Asuka in her championship defenses. She often will save herself later in the match, play defense, in order for her to be able to play offense. And again with a dragon sleeper, and that is in deep on the queen. Charlotte Flair is in serious trouble. Asuka cranking back with the dragon sleeper, and Flair is just able to get out of it. And we've seen Asuka put Charlotte Flair in some very dangerous positions, and she has not yet attempted an Asuka lock. So that just shows you where the champ is at right now in terms of her thinking. Flair now with the head scissors. We haven't seen her use this as a submission, more just a way to wear down her opponents, and we'll see some of that there. Classic Flair chop from Charlotte into a float over DDT. Charlotte has looked great early on. She came in prepared for this. Tosses Asuka over the ropes yet again, using the cage as a weapon, which we knew that both of these competitors would do. And now Flair staring daggers through the champ. Again, this is not atypical of what Asuka has done in her previous championship defenses. She will often play defense, sometimes deep into matches. And Flair, that was a little bit of a miscalculation. That was a miscalculation there, as she finds herself in the dangerous Asuka lock, and now it's Charlotte Flair's turn to be able to break the submission. That was the first time that we saw Asuka go for an Asuka lock, and truth be told, I figured that it would take more than one attempt to bring down the Queen. With all the training that Charlotte Flair has undoubtedly done, for as cocky as she is on the outside, I think she knows the type of opponent that she's in with. Able to backflip out of that German suplex with the release, and now Flair could be taking some momentum for herself here. Flair is in a good position right now and just working on the arm right now of Asuka. And what does that left arm do during an Asuka lock? That is the arm that she uses for the arm trap that keeps it behind your back and unable to reach your neck to break the submission. So Charlotte Flair, everything that she does, everything that she's planning, she has a reason, and this is great strategy here from the Queen. And now again, Charlotte goes back to this single leg crab. Or I'm sorry, the single leg camel clutch, I should say. And I don't know if she's really confident that it's going to get the job done, or if she's just wearing out Asuka's back. Either way, I think it's effective, and now Flair has Asuka in trouble again, and now targeting the legs, and I think we know what Charlotte Flair is looking to do in the near future. And who knows if the next figure 8 attempt will be the last, but it doesn't matter now. Empress hip attack from Asuka immediately shuts down Charlotte Flair. Now it was Asuka's turn to target the legs. Charlotte able to get out of it and eats a punch and goes straight into the Asuka lock. Charlotte Flair in serious trouble. Asuka has this locked in. It's cinched in deep. No rope breaks. Charlotte has to be able to get out of this, or she will concede defeat, and Asuka actually lets her out. Asuka lets her out of the Asuka lock and instead opts for a dragon sleeper, which is countered easily by Charlotte Flair. This is quite interesting that Asuka would let her get out of that, and now Flair turns it into a natural selection for herself. And could Asuka's decision to try to end the match with a dragon sleeper actually come back to bite her in the end? Single leg clutch again from Flair, and she's been going to that very often in this match as opposed to the figure 8. So very interesting. I think both of these competitors knew coming in that their opponent was going to be game planning. They knew what they were going to be facing, and so both of them have made concerted attempts to try to subvert their opponents. And now Asuka again with a dragon sleeper. This is the 4th or 5th time that she's locked it in this match. Really working hard on Charlotte Flair's neck and back, and this time she lets her out of the dragon sleeper. So I wonder if a lot of these submissions from Asuka are more about wearing down Charlotte Flair as opposed to actually getting the tap. Well, we'll have to see if the strategy ends up paying off here for the champ. Meanwhile, Charlotte Flair still looking good here. Turns her attention to the legs again. You wonder how much more Asuka is going to be able to take here with Charlotte Flair targeting her legs. Well, apparently a little bit more. Asuka pulling back the arm breaker. Both of these women are really pulling out moves that I have not seen them do before. They did their research and their practice coming into this, and now Asuka pulls back on the Asuka lock right in the middle of the ring. Charlotte Flair is in trouble, and she's able to peel Asuka's arm back, and I think that may have had something to do with Charlotte Flair's earlier attacks on Asuka's left arm. Charlotte Flair was able to easily free herself, and I think because she had attacked the arm, Asuka was not able to hold Charlotte Flair in as strong of a position as she likes to normally with the Asuka lock. Again, the Queen's strategy really paying off here, and now you can just see the strength on top of everything. If it hadn't been for Asuka, I do think Charlotte Flair probably would have been champ already in GAW. I'm fairly confident in saying that with how skilled she is and how smart she is as a competitor. But you have to be just that much more skilled, that much smarter to defeat Asuka. Charlotte Flair looking to be the first woman to do so, to take the belt off of the champ of over 1 year. And everything she does, Asuka has a counter for. And once again, she goes back to the Dragon Sleeper. Arm trapped for Charlotte. And this is just brutal. Again, I don't know if Asuka is actually expecting that to get the job done, or if she's using it to soften up Flair. Well, the Asuka lock hasn't quite worked yet, and we saw Flair's earlier attacks on Asuka's left arm probably be a good reason for that. But we'll see Flair's strategy moving forward. And if she returns to the figure eight, I assume that that's what she's been looking for. I mean, she's really been working on Asuka's legs, and now Asuka into the armbar. Beautiful cross arm breaker from Asuka, and we've seen her again defeat opponents with this submission before, and it's not going to quite do the job on the Queen. I think the Asuka lock will be needed. We'll see if Asuka gets another opportunity for that. Launched into the cage once again. Now Flair turns her attention to Asuka's legs once more. Asuka could be in serious trouble if Flair gets back to the figure eight. Once again, single leg camel clutch. I don't think that Charlotte anticipates this will get the job done. Instead, I think this is more about softening Asuka up for the time when she needs her back and core in order to break out of the figure eight. A couple chops exchanged by these two women who have given everything in this match so far. Again, Asuka tossed into the cage and grinds on her back as she falls down. This match now has gone over 15 minutes. Both women have given everything here, and you have a feeling both women have been softening each other up for either the figure eight or the Asuka lock. And you do get a feeling that whichever one comes next may be the end of this match. It's a war of attrition, and what comes next is possibly a figure eight here from Charlotte. It is. The bridge is in from Charlotte Flair, trying to win the GAW Women's Champion. But again, Charlotte Flair could not cinch it in correctly. Asuka fights out of it immediately. And I think I'm seeing the reason why. When you look at when Charlotte Flair gets the bridge in, she doesn't quite connect her foot with the ground to really ground herself. And Asuka is able to catch the foot as it comes down and then unhook Charlotte's leg. That's where the power is. Now, Dragon Sleeper once again from Asuka. She's going to this about as much as Charlotte's going for the camel clutch. I'm not sure which is more effective. But this is what the champ does. Every little mistake you make, every little thing that you do wrong, Asuka can capitalize on. And now again, with a cross arm breaker from Asuka, she has put women away this way, and she needs it this time. Asuka retains her championship with a cross arm breaker of all things. I don't know if Charlotte Flair saw that coming. I think Charlotte Flair did all of her preparation, all of her training in anticipation of the Asuka lock. And as soon as that moment happened, when Asuka released an Asuka lock in favor of a Dragon Sleeper and then a cross arm breaker, once again the champion shows how great she is. You can do everything right against Asuka, and it still will not matter. She can still out-game plan you, outthink you, and outperform in any match she's in. She is the champion, and I think she will stay that way for a long time.
The following contest is a steel cage match, and is for the World Championship.
Be hard pressed to find a rivalry more intense with more hatred than this one, the Switchblade and Samoa Joe. The main event of Bash at the Beach, traditionally taking place in the evening, not at night, since of course this event starts earlier on in the day. That is tradition. And Jay White hoping to capture his first world championship in GAW. I mean, he's captured gold pretty much everywhere else he's been. Former IWGP Heavyweight Champion. Now looking to do the same here at GAW. And he has certainly done everything in his power to make life harder for the current world champion Samoa Joe. And you can see right there all of the tape, all of the bandages covering Joe after an earlier brutal attack from the men who I think we can pretty safely assume are officially aligned with Jay White. They have done everything they can to strip the title off of this man. But Jay White has to finish things up in a steel cage. That is no easy feat. Samoa Joe is difficult enough when he's healthy. Now he's pissed off. I have a feeling this is going to be a brutal match.
Introducing the challenger from Auckland, New Zealand, weighing in at 221 pounds, Jay White. Introducing the champion from Huntington Beach, California, weighing in at 282 pounds, he is the world champion, Samoa Joe.
Will that be the last time that Samoa Joe will get to hand off that title? Joe has been put through the ringer after that attack. There is no escaping this steel structure. Pinfall or submission are the only ways to leave this cage as champion. And Samoa Joe is fighting a very, very uphill battle. Spinning back fist, didn't quite connect, but got enough into the snap suplex. And now Joe going for the pin early on to retain. Jay White kicks out. We are seeing right now a pissed off Samoa Joe. And, I mean, a happy Joe is a dangerous Joe. I can't even fathom what an angry Samoa Joe could do to the man that's been making his life hell for about 2 months. And there is a long, long line of guys that want to get their hands on the Switchblade. Samoa Joe just first in that line. It will take a heroic performance for the Samoan submission machine to finish this off after what he's been through already. I mean, just think about it. In the last 5 days, he's been brutally attacked twice by this group of men. A group that includes Drew McIntyre, Buddy Murphy, Ricky Steamboat, and of course the Switchblade himself. And now Joe targeting the legs. I did warn you about what an angry Joe might look like. Jay White's learning that lesson the hard way. Kicks laid in. I don't know how long Joe can keep up this pace, but this seems to be all adrenaline right now for the GAW World Champion. And I don't blame him after what Jay White has put him through. First there was the uncertainty, then it became the threats, and then of course it became the actual physical attacks. I mean, he has put Samoa Joe through it all, and Samoa Joe is now letting him have it all back. But of course, I mean, we said it in relation to Jimmy Uso in the, oh my God, the suplex! The suplex, Samoa Joe stood right up. Well, if that shows you anything about the mentality of the champion right now after everything he's been through. And we said it about Jimmy Uso, you never know what move is going to be the last one before just the physical block just kicks in, and Samoa Joe, I think, is going to be dealing with that in this match. Just the uncertainty of never knowing when your body's just going to shut down on you. And Jay White, I wonder if the strategy for the Switchblade is maybe just to wait it out. Wait out the initial attacks from Samoa Joe, although, I mean, I'm saying that might be a strategy. I'm not saying that's a smart strategy. We know what Samoa Joe can do to you, even at the worst of times. Dragon Sleeper, and Jay White manages to fight his way out. Yeah, I don't know how smart it is. And now Jay White going for the legs. Makes a lot of sense to me. Samoa Joe, if he's going to use the muscle buster, you need to have power in those legs. Jay White weighs about 230 pounds. So that is a big man to get up for a muscle buster. I think Jay White might be doing the right thing here, and now you're seeing the strength of Jay White with a deadlift. German bridges him. Jay White trying to win the title, and Samoa Joe kicks out. And does this mean that Samoa Joe is slowing down? White now wrenching the legs back in this kind of inverted figure four. Oh my God, that's brutal. Not enough damage done to the legs to actually get the tap from Joe. But again, Jay White targeting the legs, and that might be the only part of Samoa Joe that isn't severely hurt right now, if you can judge by the tape on his upper body. Joe seems very at home in this cage. Has used it as a weapon at times, and of course, I mean, the real reason you would be here is just to make sure that Jay White can't run, to make sure that no one can interfere. And now Joe plants him with the Uranagi, going for the pin to retain. Jay White kicks out at 2. Samoa Joe can't believe it, but you can't let that get the better of you right now, Joe. You have to continue, and I think he knows that. This is a man that's been around this sport for a long, long time. He knows what he's doing. Senton from Joe. And again, I mean, it looked like Jay White maybe had the upper hand. Joe continuing to come back, but now White hoists him up in the Kiwi Crusher. Well, that'll drive the air out real fast. And Samoa Joe could be in trouble here. Jay White kicks out of the Uranagi. Kiwi Crusher drives all of Joe's breath out, and now Jay White, after a quick attack, going for the pin, and Joe kicks out. Jay White was that close to being GAW World Champion, and now looking to finish things off the same way that he's won so many matches before, but Samoa Joe avoids what was surely going to be the Blade Runner. Joe, I think, maybe looking for the Coquina clutch there, and Jay White avoids that one. And fans egging on Samoa Joe, desperate for the Samoan submission machine to retain against the evil Jay White. But now White again with the Kiwi Crusher, and this time wraps Joe up to go for the pin to win the championship. Samoa Joe kicks out. A couple brutal attacks from Jay White, but the world champion is hanging on. White again with this deadlift German. Jay White certainly has a lot of power in him. That one I will give him. And now White again was looking for the Blade Runner and is on the wrong end of a massive punch from Samoa Joe. Now a powerbomb. Joe stacks him up, going to retain the title. That's it. Samoa Joe stacks Jay White up with the powerbomb. Samoa Joe needed to pull it out. He needed to pull out all the stops to win a match against the evil Jay White after everything that White and his cronies put Samoa Joe through. An absolutely heroic performance. Almost of biblical stature for Samoa Joe to actually retain his title after everything that Jay White put him through. And I don't know if anyone has relished those two words and still more than Samoa Joe is right now. And that's it for Bash at Beach. Thank you so much for just